a setup where you will get error and the response like this. So it depends on how the callback functions are implemented in the library, but yeah. So your callback will tell you that the data is available. So over here, now you will write that, okay, console.log, and this will be your response. Okay, so let me show you an example of this, a very simple example. I will go to my browser. Okay, in the console, we are going to write a code. So we're going to write, instead of this line, we're going to write an asynchronous code which is for a timeout. So in JavaScript, there is a timeout method which allows you to call something after a specified milliseconds of time. So it will call this function after few milliseconds. So I can define that, okay, call this function after 3000 milliseconds. That's equal to 3 seconds. So over here, I will run console.log, 3 seconds completed. Okay, like this. Now let's run this code. How this will work is you will get 1, 2, 3, 4 because they are a synchronous code, but the one which is set timeout, that's a asynchronous code. So it will return you the response sometime in the future. So the synchronous code will execute. Once the synchronous code is over, then the asynchronous code will execute and return you the response that, okay, yep, the 3 seconds are over, and we have the response from the API or whatever you want to do after the API response is implemented. So this is how asynchronous code works in JavaScript. Now, this approach which I showed you, the implementation of callbacks, this is the very basic approach which JavaScript started with. So everybody used to use this approach for handling asynchronous code. Now there are improvements on top of it. You have promises, you have observables, which are used for improving this experience for the developer. Okay, so we're going to use observables. That's something which your Angular code also supports. So we are going to use observables from the RxJS library. Okay, so we will see how we can write asynchronous code. Observables can also be used for like this is one of the examples. So observables can be used for handling asynchronous code. They can be also used for handling a stream of data. So what do you mean by a stream of data? Example is you have a stock ticker. So if you are interested in stocks, let's say I go to the stock market and look for Tesla stock. Okay, so this Tesla stock is not going to be fixed. So right now the market is closed, but once the market opens, you will see that stock will update every few seconds or after some time. So what happens is it's a live data. Okay, and it will change after some time. So it's a stream of data. So if you have a stream of data like this kind of a stream of data is created by using WebSockets. So we are going to learn WebSockets later. Let me just check the content. Yeah, I think we have the topic for WebSockets in this. We're going to learn WebSockets, but WebSockets allow you to create a stream. What they do is, if you know about HTTP, how HTTP protocol works, HTTP protocol works based on it works on based on your single duplex channel. Like it only sends you data from one direction. So you have to request for the data, then only the server will respond to the data. But with WebSockets, what can be done is your server can also send messages. Like if you have already used WhatsApp, WhatsApp uses WebSockets in it. So it's not only that you can send message to your friends can also send messages to you. So it's a duplex connection. So if you have this kind of a stream of data, which can come anytime, the data can come anytime, your observables can be used in that case. Okay, so you have observables for that. Then what happened? 1 second here. And it can be used for mapping values. If you are receiving a stream of data, you want to do filtering on it, or you want to restrict some records, you can do this mapping with with RxJS, and it also allows you to combine multiple streams of data into one. So RxJS has methods in it, like functions and operators in it. Functions over here are like for creating observables. So if you want to create observable from some data, you can use off method, from method. Then you have pipe method for shaping the data into a different form. So you're receiving an array and you want to filter some data into the array. So you can use the pipe method for it. You want to throw an error from your RxJS observable, you can use this. You want to add some interval in the code execution, you can use interval. If you have data coming from multiple resources and you want to combine that together, you can use merge. And you have the set of operators. So operators work with pipe. So what pipe does is it's like a connection between operators and pipe. Oh, sorry, operators and the data. So you write a pipe which takes some operators and formats a value according to your requirement. So you have map, you have find, you have take, filter, concat, catch error. So these are used for handling different types of scenarios for data manipulation. Now, we're going to see how observables are created. Sorry, yesterday we created observable using behavior subject. Now we're going to use direct methods which are available on RxJS for creating these observables. So what we'll do is go to the Angular project. We'll go to our service. Let's go to our user service and keep some data about the user over here. Okay, so let's start with the user only. So instead of creating the behavior subject for the user, we're going to use a method from RxJS which is off. Okay, off method comes from RxJS, so we need to import this. Okay, and I want to create an observable. So what I will do is I will add user is going to be type of user equal to new off, and in the off you have to define that from what you want to create the observable. So you have to pre-fill the data directly over here. Okay, so I want to create the data from some data, like from some information. So I can write, okay, yeah, so I want to create a user observable, and that will be based on this object which I have. So I'll write name, and the name of the user is going to be ABC, or we can use the interface also. So it uses this interface. So over here, I can write this is going to have the user type, and we can define properties in it. One second. So write email. Like this. Okay, so we are getting an error. Email property is missing from the type observable user, but yeah, so we're going to say this is also going to be observable like this. Okay, so user is observable, which will have data of type of user, and it's going to be created by using the off method, which will return as a user, and it has a default value of email, which is abcd, or sorry, at the abc@def, and that's our data. So we'll start the project. Okay, so yeah, I got this error over here. why I'm getting this error, because now this observable does not have a method for next. So that's the main difference when you're using a behavior subject or off. When you create a observable from off, you cannot change the value of it. So once the value has been created, it cannot be again changed. Okay, so now if we run this, you can see it prints out abc@def, because that was the hard-coded value, and the header component is actually using the value of user to show this result. So that's been printed over here. Okay, so that's one way of creating observable by using the off method. Now, this is the off method. There is another one which is called as from. So what does from does over here? So from will also create observable, and it's going to be type of user, and we're going to say from user. Now, what is the difference between from and off? So in the from, you have to provide an array. So you can see the documentation over here, which we have. One second, here it is. So we have from, in the from, what you have to do is you have to provide an array, and it will create the observable based on each of the values. So what it does is, it will actually call the subscribe method n number of times based on how many items you have passed in it. Okay. So we have from, in the from we have an array. In the array we have 10, 10, 20, and 30. So that means if you have 3 items in it, so it will call the subscribe method 3 times in the code. Okay, so it's like you can provide an array, and it can create a stream of data and trigger the subscribe method based on how many items are returned in the array. So what I can do is I can write array. In the array, I will write one single record which will have email, and we'll just write some data over here like abc@def.com. Why is it giving an error? Yeah, no, it's fine. Okay, so you have one, then we'll create another record that will be email, and that will, the value for this one would be email 2. So that's our second email address at def.com. So my code has 2 different email addresses in the observable. So what it does is it's going to create a stream of data. So it will call the subscribe once, and then it will call the subscribe again for the second one. So first this will be the subscribe value, then the second will be the subscribe value for it. So this is used for creating a stream of data from observable. Now let's run this code, and you can see it returns email 2 over here. So why email 2 is written over here? Because that's the last item which has been published, or which is in the last at the stream of the data. So we see email 2@def.com. Okay, so that creates our observable using a array. Okay, so that's this one. Now the most important one is the pipe actually. So this is the one which is used a lot in most of the applications. So what pipe does is it allows you to modify. So we learned about the Angular template pipes, which allow you to modify the value in the template. So pipes are also similar in RxJS. So they allow you to modify the value when the subscribe, before the subscribe happens. So it will allow you to modify it. So let's see an example of it. Let's say I have, I will implement the pipe over here. In the pipe, I have to provide a operator function. So how do I want to pipe the data? Okay, so I got a question from Sachin. Will this from return all array value? So it will call the subscribe based on how many items you have in the array. So if you have 2 items in the array, the subscribe will be called 2 times. So I will show you example like in the header. What I will do is, because I'm subscribing to the header over here, so I can write console.log response. Okay, so we'll see how many times the user is printed. So we'll go back, and over here we'll do a refresh, and you will see it prints out the user object 2 times over here, because there are 2 items in the array, and the subscribe is triggered 2 times because the array has 2 items in it. So if you have like 20 items, the subscribe will be triggered 20 times based on how many, like directly based on how many items you have in the array. Okay, is it clear, Sachin? Okay, so I got a question from Sheikh also. So yesterday we seen 4 ways of creating observables. Yes, so yes, we seen 4 ways of creating observables in RxJS yesterday. Those were subjects, and subjects are also observables. And yeah, today we are covering more other methods which also can be used for creating observables. So one of that is here of, the other one is from. There are multiple of these which you can use. Okay, so the next question I got is, in the header, ultimately it takes the last email ID from the array. If I run this, so it is a very fast process. So it only shows you the last email ID. But if the data was coming in some delay, it would have shown you that okay, the first email address shows up, then the second email address shows up. But right now it's a very fast process. So there is no way to see that okay, individual values are being updated. But actually, it will going to pass the first value in the screen, then the second value gets updated. All right, so let's move to the pipe. Now, for implementing pipe, we need an operator which will be used for modifying the value. So I will go back to my service and I have a pipe over here. Now, what I want to do is, let's say I want to change the case of this value, like it's in lower case. I want to change this to uppercase. So pipes can be used for modifying these kind of things. So what we can do is we can take an operator. So we'll go to the top and import from RxJS/operators, and we're going to use the map method. Okay, so map method, what it does is it allows you to receive a value, modify it, and return it back. So over here I can call map. In the map method, I have to pass a function that how will the value be modified. So write function. Okay, and return some value. So right now I'm just going to return the same value as is. So just whatever value it receives, I'm going to return that directly. So if I run this now, so we'll see the same value in the console. Also we see the same value. But what I can do is, when I'm returning the value, I can say in the value add another value in it, which is the timestamp, and the timestamp would be .iso string. Oh yeah, it's giving an interface error, so we'll just correct this interface. So we'll say it has timestamp also. That's also going to be a string value, and it's an optional value. Okay, now if I run this code, you can see I received 2 items, but it also has now a timestamp in it. So when the code runs, the map can be used for adding some values to it, removing some values from it, or even changing the information which you have in the data. So that can be used for modifying any kind of data. So I got a question. Can we make it as a date? Yes, you can make this as a date also. So you can say it's a date type, and over here I can just write like this. In that case, I will receive a date object over here. Okay, so I got a question. Can we make any logic in from observable to get only some array value? Yeah, so there is way. What you can do is, let's say you want to get only few number of the items, there are operators in it which can be used for that. So I will show you that example. Okay, but is it clear like what we can do with map? So map can be used for modifying any value which you have before it hits the observable. So this map value is going to run like this. So you have the observable, over here. Okay, the observable passes the value to subscribe. You have a subscribe. Okay, but the map sits between, like instead of doing this kind of a connection where it's going to directly call the subscribe, it sits between it. So over here, it sits over here and allows you to define a pipe. So pipe actually sits over here, and in the pipe you can define that, okay, before you are sending the value, I want to change the value, so I want to call map. It will map the value. So whatever is coming from this pipe, it will come to the map will change it, and then the updated value will be returned back to the pipe from here, and the new value goes to the system. Okay, so it's going to be like this. So you have this line as red, you can say, okay, this is the data coming in, this is the data going out, and that data which is going out, that will directly go to the subscribe. So the communication sits like actually like this, and this is going to be the red value. Okay, so your observable gives the data to pipe, the pipe gives the data to map changes the result and returns your value back to the pipe then calls the data back to the subscribe. So this is how the pipe and the map method can be used for modifying any result before it is being passed to the subscribe. And the good thing about this is you can create multiple pipes also. So you can say one pipe is going to add the timestamp, then the other one is going to change the content of the email address. So I got a question, whatever we change in the pipes will be visible in the UI. Yeah, so if you have email address, now I can say the value dot email is going to be value dot email dot to uppercase. So I want to convert that to uppercase. That will be all in uppercase now. So now go to the page. Now you can see the data which I've received, it is now all in uppercase, and the value which I've shown over here, that is also in uppercase. So this can be used for even changing any type of content in the result which you're getting. Okay, so question I got is Somnath, I'm not using the timestamp on the screen, so that's why it's not showing up. I'm just using the email address. Okay, so I got another question. So by using off, we can't change the value, but it is possible to change from using from. No, we can change it from off also. So see, I just covered the example with the from, but what you can do is you can do the same thing with the off also. So let's comment this code and enable this code over here. Okay, so this creates, So this moves out over here. Like this. So whatever data you have, it comes from off, gets passed to these all two methods, and it updates on the screen. So, but now it's only triggering once because the off creates only one event. Okay, so I got a question from Sabuj. The question is, we came to know the pipes can only be used in interpolation in HTML. This pipe is different from previous one. Yes, this is a different one because the one which we covered earlier, that was an Angular pipe. It's a component which is built like a feature built in Angular. But this feature which you're covering, this is directly built in RxJS library. And it can work on any observable. So it can work on observables created by behavior subject, observables created by HTTP client, anything which creates observable, it can be used. Okay. Okay, so Somnath, I got a question. If finally the output will be shown for the last item in the header, what's the need of multiple items? So, okay, uh, the need of that is that you are creating a stream of data. So in that case, you need to provide the data. So you don't want to process everything in one single request. Yeah, so you create multiple requests coming in, and those are used by processing, individually getting processed on the screen. I will show you some examples for that later, but yeah, you just understand like from and off two ways of creating observables. Off creates it with uh, one single record, from creates it with the array. Okay, is this library only bind to Angular? No, it's a library which can be used with React.js, JavaScript projects, anything which you want to create with JavaScript can use RxJS. It's a dependency of Angular. So Angular depends on it to run the code, but it's not something that you cannot use outside of Angular. It can be used with any kind of a JavaScript project. And people are using RxJS also in their React.js projects to implement the code. Okay, so everybody clear with the pipe? That what is a pipe and how pipes can use the map method? Okay, so what's next? So next is throw error. So throw error is a way of throwing an error from your observable. So in this way, it will just say that, okay, the data is not received and the observable has error in that. Okay, so let me show you an example of it. Okay, so now when you're working with observable, so you have to first go to the observable where you are writing the subscribe, and in this we can handle the error. So if you see this user subscribe method, there are different ways of using it. So what we can do is the first function which we pass, that is the success scenario, that something has successfully happened. If you pass another function into it, that will be your error scenario. So what to do if there is an error in the code? So this will be a way to handle the error. So why do we need to handle the error? Because you are making an API request to a server and the server didn't reply you back. There is a 404 or there is a authentication error which has happened, and you don't have the data which you're looking on the server, and it will return your error. And by using this error, you want to show some message to the user that there is no user data or something is wrong. So we have the error handling. So we receive error. Okay, in this we're going to write console.log error received. Okay, just to show you that okay, we have received the error in this. Okay, so error received. And now how do we throw error? We go back to our service. Instead of writing this code for the off, I will comment actually everything over here and say sorry, user is going to be equal to throw error from RxJS, and you can throw some error message over here. So you can send some text value that what error you want to throw. Okay, so once again, yeah, so you can pass in any error text and that will be sent from here. So error happened. Okay, now in your code, when you run this code, it will receive this error over here. So where is the error message? Yeah, okay. Why is the console not printed? Okay, this is the okay. 1 second. It's going to subscribe. Why? This is throw error. Okay, yeah. So over here, it's giving me an error over here that it's always set to some any value. You can say this is going to be type of user and this is going to be type of any, no, sorry, string. It works fine. Okay, now when we refresh the page, we can see it says error received and doesn't print any data over here. So if you are implementing a call like API request and the API has failed, so it will allow you to handle that by returning a error from it. So in that case, you can show some message to the user that okay, error has handled or like error has received, and based on that you can show some data. So what we can do is, like in our case, I'm receiving this error, so I can write another public key and we'll call this as email error if there is an email error received. So first of all, we'll say it is null value. If there is actually an error, we can assign this dot error equal to error over here, like this. Okay, so we're going to say this is going to be a string or a null value. Okay, that's going to be fine. And if there is an error in the template, we're going to write a span tag, like any HTML tag on this, because the value by default is null value. So we can write ng if the value is true, then print the error like this. Okay, now it shows you error happened because it's not able to handle the code and it shows a error message over here. Okay, so if it is all successful, it would show the email address. If there is an error, then you can say, okay, error has happened, let's show some other value. Okay, any questions? There's any other questions on this? Is it clear how error is thrown and how do you handle it? Okay, next is interval. So interval is used for running some code after some interval. So it will just create a new observable, but this observable will automatically create an event after a defined time. Okay, so I will show you over here how it works. So let's say I want to show a clock on the screen. So what I will do is I will create a public property and I will say 1 second event. So this event will be triggered every 1 second, and it is equal to interval uh, interval from RxJS, and we'll say it's going to be 1 second, that is 1 millisecond or 1000 milliseconds, and this will be an event which will be triggered automatically after every 1 second now. So to handle this, I can go to the header, and over here I can say this dot user service dot 1 second event dot subscribe. Okay, and we'll write a console in it, and we'll write a new date dot iso string. Okay, so when I run this code, you will see it prints out a new date every 1 second. So you can see over here. So every time 1 second is over, it will print a new message to the user. Okay, so you can run a logic where you have something to be triggered every 1 second. So you can add, or any defined time, you can use the interval over here like this. Okay, so I can just comment this, otherwise it will just keep on printing messages in the console. Next is merge. So merge is used for combining data coming from different resources together. Then you have map. We already have seen map. Operators, these are the operators which we have. The find operator is used for finding any specific data from the set. So I got this question earlier that if I want to find a specific record from the stream, how can I do that? So that can be done with the find. So there are two methods, find and filter. Find, what it does, it returns you the first item which is matching with the result. Okay, and there is a filter one which is going to return you all the items which are matched with that result. Okay, you have take what it does is like when you're getting a stream of data, you have like multiple observables which are returned, like one observable which is returning multiple events. By using take, you can define that how many results you want to take from it. So instead of like receiving all of them, you can just say I only want to receive the first 5 or first 2 results from the data. So you can use take in that case. So it will only handle the first records, and all the other ones will be not handled. Catch error is for catching errors. So if your code throws an error and you want to catch it and run some logic on it, you can use catch error. And yeah, so this is a setup of RxJS methods which we have. Now we know, like, okay, if I cover these topics, it may not be very clear. So what we're going to do is we are going to make a server. It's a mock server with RxJS. So it's a very common way how developers also write mock APIs. Okay, so in this way, it's actually not a server. It's just a way that how we provide fake APIs to our Angular application, and we're going to use this whole RxJS setup for doing that. Okay, so what we are implementing is, I'll just draw it over here so it's clear. So in the yesterday session, we learned about this, that you have a callout service. The callout service calls the HTTP client. The HTTP client calls the API and gets the data. But you know one thing, this APIs are not under your control. These are all managed by a different team. So this is going kind of a gray area for you. So you don't have control on them. So let's say your backend team has not developed these APIs for you, and still you want to develop an application with some logic in it. You don't want to waste your time, and still you want to implement some code. So what you will do is you will create a fake API. For creating a fake API, you can do lots of different things. You can say, I will use JSON server. Yep, JSON server is a good option, but it doesn't gives you full features. You can create your own API by learning Node.js, like you can learn Node.js or .NET and create a very basic API just to feed data into your application. Okay, that's also a good thing. But again, learning Node.js can be a long process for you, and you don't want to waste more time on it. So we can do one thing. In your Angular project, there is a feature which is called as a HTTP interceptor. So the HTTP interceptor sits between over here. Okay, so when you send a request from your client to the server, the interceptor is sitting between over here. Okay, so by default, there is no HTTP interceptor provided in Angular. You have to create one. It's very simple. It's a service which you have to create, but this interceptor will allow you to intercept any request before it goes to the server and responses back from the server. So it is a bidirectional channel again. So if you send a request or receive a request, the interceptor will get notified, and the interceptor can be used for modifying the request also with some data in it. So for today, we are going to use the interceptor to write our own custom logic to create a fake API for our project, so that we can show that, okay, if I don't have an API, how will I start developing my project? And once I have the API, I can just remove the interceptor from the code, and the actual call will be sent to the API. Okay, so we are going to use all the concepts of RxJS, which we learned till now, in this interceptor implementation. Just give me a minute. let's start. We are going to set up our code for it. So first step would be we're going to create a new terminal window, and we want to start with a new interface. Okay, so I got a question. If there is a fake API, then only we use interceptor. Can explain again? Okay, so interceptor is going to be used when you need a fake API. So if you are creating a project, your APIs may not be available when you're starting with the project because it's a different team. The backend team is going to develop it for you, and they may not have the same timelines as you, and still you need to develop your project. So what we do is we fake those APIs using interceptor, and we're going to implement an interceptor and use that for creating these fake APIs. Okay, so let's start with it. Any other question on it? Okay, so let's go to the code and create a new interceptor for us. So I will write ng generate interceptor. Okay, it's going to be added into our services folder because interceptor is also a service, and I'm going to call this as HTTP or fake API. That's better. Okay, it's going to be called as fake API, and let's create this. So it creates the interceptor. So like I said, interceptor is a service only, so it will be having a similar code to a service, and you'll see over here that yeah, so it is a injectable code, and the name of this is going instead of calling it as a service, we call it as a interceptor. So it's called as fake API interceptor, the name which I've given. It implements a interface which is called as HTTP interceptor that defines that this is the interceptor service. So it will intercept any HTTP request which you're sending from your client to the server. It must implement a intercept method which will be used for handling your requests. Okay, so that's your boilerplate code for an interceptor. So any request which you're making to your server will come to this intercept method. Okay. All right, so that's the interceptor. Now the interceptor will not by default automatically work for your code. So what you have to do is you have to tell the Angular project to use this interceptor uh, in the project. So what we do is we go to the app module file. In the app module file, okay, over here in the providers, we are going to add this interceptor. So we're going to do is we're going to write a code object, and providers is a way to tell the Angular application that we want to provide you a special feature to enhance the functionalities. So I want to provide a HTTP interceptor. So I will write I want to provide HTTP interceptor. This interceptor is again going to come from the HTTP client. Okay, so we want to use a class for it. That will be our fake API interceptor, and we're going to tell it's going to create multiple instances of it. So that is your multi-true. Okay, so this is the first change which you have to do in your project to implement this interceptor, to start this interceptor. Okay, so generally what we do is this is only required in your development time. When you are sending it to the production, we should not add this interceptor, because on your production environment you will have the production APIs which will be already running. Otherwise you will not be sending something to the production. So what you do is you can write import from uh, import from environments. So you can go one level up and import the environment, and from here you will import the environment file. Okay, that's the environment which we need. And it says your environment will be a type of production, which is going to be false. So this is going to be hard, like available in your project. This may not be, because this is something which I added to test something, but this line of code will be there in your project, which is in environment ts file. Okay, and it sets that the environment right now is a production environment. Okay, so we have this value. Now what we'll do is I will add a small code over here that would be environment.production and it doesn't compile that. Okay, 1 second. Okay, environment.production. Okay, so I think it will not support this. We'll write it right now. We'll add this chain check later on. Okay, so first let's add this interceptor into our project. We'll add the check for environment later on. Okay, so this will work for every API request which you're sending. So cool. So now what we're going to do is let's load our project and see if everything works fine. So on our project, everything is working. Yes. So our code is actually sending a request to top news. So see, it's sending a request to localhost 3000 slash top news. That's the API server which we created yesterday by using JSON server, and it sends a request to it. But right now I haven't started the JSON server, so it's failing the request. So let's handle this request using the mock server. So what I will do is I will go to the interceptor. Where is the interceptor over here? Here it is. In the fake API, in the intercept method, I will receive all the API calls which are being sent. So how can I check that? So what I can do is I can receive the information about the request and what requests are being sent over here. So I can write from the request object, this request, I want to get the URL of it, the methods, the method of it, which type of method it is, and the body of it. Okay, and let's write a console to see what we get over here. On this code, and is it being added? Yeah, over here you can see the fake API interceptor has provided us the details. So the URL is this, the method is get, and the body is null. So there is no body which is being passed into the code. Okay, so this way our interceptor can handle any request which is being sent to the server. So now how do I return this with the successful data? Okay, so that's something which we need to write. How will we write it? What we're going to do is, first of all, one simple rule is that when you are handling any request with the interceptor, you have to return a observable from the code. So right now, this next dot handle method, if you check the handle method over here, this handle method is going to return an observable with the HTTP event type. Okay, so instead of returning this handle method from here, I want to send some my own data. I have to send some fake data into it. So first step would be, let's create some information about this URL. So what I will do is I will say match URL. I will create a method which will be called as match URL. This match URL function will return me the it will return me the details about the URL, and I can then call some functions according to it. So it will receive a URL. In this, I can match this by writing a switch case. So write switch, or I can actually write a if condition, that will be better. If the URL which I'm receiving that ends with, so we'll say URL is going to be a string. Yeah, it's a string. And we can say the URL dot ends with, that what is it going to end with? End with means it should be something which is at the last of the URL. Okay, so what we're looking for is, we are looking for this top news URL. So that is the ending part of it. So I can say if the request comes in and the URL ends with the top news, then return some data from it. That is the array or something which I want to return from it, like this. Okay. Otherwise, if there is nothing which has been matched, then return next dot handle over here, like this. Okay. So if there is nothing matched, just return whatever is the request. Let it send to the server. So if you write next dot handle, that means you are sending the request to the server. You're not handling it with the fake API. Okay. So now how will we send some return from this intercept method? So over here in the intercept method, we'll say create observable by using the off method. Okay. In this, I will just pass an undefined into it, that I want to create observable with undefined value. And on this, we are going to write map. So we're going to map it using the handle method. So in this one, so we'll call the match route method. Okay. So that will send the information about the URL to the match method over here. One second. So it's not able to find the map method. So we'll write import from RxJS operators, and we want to use the map method. Okay, so yeah, it's going to give an error. It's fine. We're going to fix this. Now it's going to pass it to the map method. Now this response which I'm sending, this is not the right way. This is actually not the right object which is being looked for. So what we have to do is, uh, in this case, what we have to do is we have to also send the status code, that is the API successful or there is some error in the API or anything. So here, instead of returning directly an array, I will say OK. So OK will come from RxJS operator, RxJS. Okay, and how do we get that? So we are going to create a new method in it, which will tell us that the authentication or anything which we are looking for is fine. Okay, so what we do is we'll create a function over here, function OK, and this will return us HTTP response. So we'll say return a promise, oh sorry, not a promise, actually observable, and this will be a new HTTP response which I want to send. So because I'm creating a fake API, so I have to return a response from here, and I will say yes, this response is going to be type of success. So we'll say status 200 and the body content which I want to pass, like the actual content which I want to pass, and we'll pass that over here from this data. Okay, and it's going to be any type of data because we don't know what is the type of body. So it can be any type of content which you want to pass to the body. Okay, and that is going to be used over here. So over here, I will say I want to return a array from this code like this. Okay, so now what we are getting error. One second. We need to use this. One second, why is it giving an error? Oh, okay, yeah, I'll just say any. Okay, so that implements our fake API. So one small change over here. Yeah, sorry, this is the final code. Let's see. So what I did is I just created an intercept method. This intercept method is going to receive all the requests which you are sending to the server. So first we are checking the URL of it. So we are getting the URL, method, and the body, and that method, that URL is being checked over here. So we are checking that what is the URL and how it has been ending. So because the ending of the URL is very important to us, that will tell us that where you are sending the request to. So I'm sending the request to top news. If I'm sending the request to top news, intercept that request, and instead of that, that getting the data from the actual server, fake that data by sending this information, which is okay. Okay means I'm sending a HTTP response, which is a successful status, and I want to pass in a array as a fake data. So this is our fake data which I want to pass. So that record is being sent from here. Now, if you go to the code, you will see in the network, there will not be any call which will be sent to the top news, because the actual call which has to be sent to the server is now been intercepted by the HTTP interceptor. So there is no call which is being sent to the server for this data, and it will receive the fake data from this API now, like from this implementation. So whatever fake data I want to send, I can send it from here. So I can say I want to send a fake data from this API. What data I want to send is, let's fake this. In our DB.json, I have a news article for top news. I'll just copy this and say that this is something which I want to send to fake this API. Okay, and I will say fake API article. So instead of sending a request to the server and getting the data, it will just return the data from this fake API. So now let's run this code, and you will see it prints out one single record which is returned by my fake API, and that has a title of fake API article. So this way you can fake API responses and make your application run without a serverless. No, sorry, without a server. Okay, I know there will be a lot of questions around it, so you can send me questions. I will do a repeat of this also. So, but if you have any questions, please send me your questions. Okay, so I will do one thing. I will commit this code into the GitHub. You can just first have a look into it, set this up on your system, then I will do a recap of it. Okay, so please check the code on GitHub, try this out. I'll give you 5 minutes for this. Then I will do a recap of this, that what I'm trying to achieve over here. Hi everyone. Okay, so let's do a recap of this. Guys, please save the GitHub link. 1 second, I will give it to you. Here it is. Okay, so I got a few questions. So Maheshwari's question is, got error in match URL, how to fix? I felt it's going, okay, I'm going fast, okay. Okay, so Maheshwari, what is the error you're getting? Okay, so next point is you used a lot of functions which we don't have any idea how to get such things in first time. So, okay, so I'm using something which we are doing for the first time only. And the only function which I've used is like this is the interface. It automatically, sorry, interceptor, which gets created by Angular. So there is nothing new which I'm doing. It's just you have to wait and learn things. It's not going to be something which you will learn in the first day. Take some time and do a practice of it. Then easily you will be comfortable with. Even for me, like when I started with Angular, these things were very new to me. It will take some time. Okay, so it just once you get the hold of what is the process, it's going to be much more easier for you. Okay, so let me repeat again like what I covered in this session right now. So we have our drawing. So what we did in the yesterday session was we implemented a callout service. The callout service was calling the HTTP server. The HTTP server was calling the JSON server. So this box which I have over here, the orange color box, that was our JSON server. So I was making a request to the JSON server and getting data back to my callout service. Okay. Now in Angular, there is a special type of a service which is called as an interceptor. The interceptor intercepts your request. So instead of sending the request to the actual server, the actual API, it intercepts it. Interceptor means that something which will something which is happening, you will intercept. You will step into it, and you will try to change something, or you will let it run. Okay. So interceptor over here is going to step in and see that what request you are sending. So I'm sending a request for top news. All right. So if I'm sending a new request for top news, do I want to send it to the server, or I want to stop it and control the behavior of the top news request by myself? So that is a decision which I have to do. Okay. And how we do that is first you have to create the interceptor. We have I've already sent you the command for it. If you don't have that, I can send you again. So this is the command for creating an interceptor. That will be ng generate interceptor services. In the services folder, I want to call it as fake API. So this is my fake API which I want to implement. Now, once your interceptor is created, you have to go to the app module. In the app module, you have to tell Angular that I want to add an interceptor in the project. So it's not going to be by default added. Like all the other services which we have created, we can use them directly in our components. But in the case of interceptor, we have to provide it to the Angular project, and that is done through the providers. So we'll say I want to provide you a HTTP interceptor, and this interceptor is going to be implemented using the class which is called as fake API interceptor, and it's going to create multiple instances of it. So all of them, these things are imported from the respective files. So you have the fake API interceptor imported from the services slash API dot interceptor, and the HTTP interceptor is imported from Angular slash common slash HTTP. Okay, so this is the place where they get intercept received. Once they are added into the project, now your Angular project will send all the request information to the interceptor, and the interceptor can control the behavior of it. Okay, so what we need to do is, now let's go to the interceptor which we have created. So that's the fake API interceptor. So in this, the intercept method is by default created. This method will be called every time when you are making a request. So if you are sending a request to the server, this method will be called automatically. Now, in this method, there is a logic which will send the request to the server. So you have two choices over here. So the choice is either you intercept the request and return the data from some fake information. So let's say I have a fake API implementation code. So fake API written in JavaScript. Okay, so I can provide the data. So I can say I have a fake API. I can provide it to the fake API, or I can send it to the server. So I can write like this and then say, okay, yeah, I want to send it to the server also. So it's up to me at what path I want to take the code in. So I can say, okay, yeah, I want to provide the data using the fake API. So this is a choice which I have to implement. Now, this choice can be implemented on different URLs. So it's not that all the APIs will go to the server, all the APIs will go to the fake endpoint. Okay, so it's up to me which URLs I want to handle. So in my case, I want to handle the top news URL. Okay, so I'll write top news. So this is the URL which I want to send to the fake implementation code, and any other request which I get, I want to send it to the server. So that is done over here. Okay, so I'm receiving the request in the intercept. Now in the intercept, at the last, there is a change which I did. So what I did is I'm returning off. Okay, off means I'm creating observable of an undefined value. So just for creating observable, it's not going to have any impact on our code. It just, I'm creating observable as a shortcut by using the off method. Okay, the value of the observable is undefined. There is no defined value for it. Now, once the observable is created, I am passing the value to the pipe method. The pipe method takes the value and passes to the operator. So we are passing it to the merge map operator. So it's same as a map. What it does is you have to pass a handler function to it, that what should be done when the value is received. So now this information goes to the match URL method. So this is not provided by Angular or RxJS. I have created the logic for this. So what this does is it checks my URL. So where do I get the URL? I get the URL from the intercept. So intercept method receives two parameters, next and request and next. Request means what is the request you are sending to the server. So that request object is received. And next means that what do you want to, how do you want to handle this? You want to handle it by sending it to the server, or you want to return it by some fake data which you have. Okay, so request, on the request, I have URL, method, and body. So I want to extract the request is object from which I want to get the value of URL, method, and body from it. Now in the match URL, I'm just writing a if condition. It just checks that the URL ends with is a method in JavaScript, which tells you that what is the last value in the string. So is it ending, or it is a part of the string but at the ending of it. So means that if I have A, B, C, D, E, F, so what it does is it just checks that if I run the end with on this one, ends with, so I can say, is this string ending with DEF at the last? So it will just tell me that yes, there is DEF at the last. So it's going to return me a true value. So that's the check which I'm doing. So I'm just checking the URL which you're receiving, is it ending with top news at the last? And if it ends with top news at the last, that's perfect. That means I want to override this. Instead of sending the request to the server, I want to send my own fake data from it. So that fake data is called by the OK method. So I have implemented the OK method over here. This OK method, what it does is it creates a new observable, but this new observable is created using the HTTP response. So when you are sending a response back to your HTTP client, then you have to create a HTTP response object. In this, I'm passing the body. Body means what content I want to return from it. So I'm passing that. I'm setting the HTTP status code to be 200 so that the system knows, the HTTP client knows that this is a successful request. Okay, so that's created. So what I'm doing is I'm calling the OK method. I'm passing this whole data into it, which is the array, and that is the body which is going to be added in the response. So this creates the HTTP response and returns from here. Okay, so this OK returns from here. If any request has been sent which is not required to be handled, then at the last you will have the next method over here. So next dot handle request means that I want to send this request to the final server. I don't want to intercept this. I want to send it to the server and let the server decide what to do with this request. Okay, so once this whole code is implemented, if I go back to my page, you can see one single record shows up over here. How? Because for loading this record, I have to make a HTTP request to top news. The top news request gets intercepted and the interceptor returns one record from this code. And that is being shown on the screen. So that means this way you can fake a API and show some content on the user, or even implement your use cases based on this fake implementation of a API. Okay, is it clear now? Any questions on it? Okay, so try this on your system. So we have plenty of time. I want to make sure you are clear with this because this is the one of the topic which is going to be used a lot in your development. So just try this out. Okay, so I got a question. Whatever we are passing in the body, would it show in the network tab? No. Why it will not show in the network tab? Coming back to this drawing. So when you are sending a request to the through the client service, the interceptor handles it. The network tab will only show the request if it sends to the server. But in our case, it's been handled by the interceptor, so it will not show that request in the network tab. Okay, any questions? Anyone has any questions on it? Okay, so spend some time on it. Take 10 minutes, go through the code, run this code on the system. I already have given you the code on GitHub. So it's already there. So you can try this out and then we'll continue. Okay, I can send you this file also if you want. I can send you the HTTP interceptor file and the change which you have to do in the app module also. Try this out. Okay, so I got a question. Means whenever we take fake API using interceptor, it will always show as in UI. Okay, so uh, yes, so kind of it's only for the UI code. It's not sending a request to the server side. So your UI code will work as is. Whatever API client you have created, or the HTTP client you have implemented, that will be working as is. This is just to fake a API. Instead of sending it to the server, we use it uh, in place of that. So I got a next question, which is we used fake API for interceptor. If a real API is developed, what should we do? So there are two options which you have. So in some cases, your real API may be created, but not all of the APIs maybe are implemented. So see, a project may have like different APIs, like 50 different APIs, and you will be having like 50 conditions over here. So what you can do is you can say, okay, this is my API one, another one over here. Okay. So what you will do is in your development, if a new API is created, you will say, okay, if a new API is created, let's comment the logic for it or even remove the logic from the interceptor. But one simple rule, never commit or never run this interceptor, the fake API interceptor, when you are deploying this code to the production. So what you should do is you should have a check over here in the app module that this line of code should not be running on a production environment. So I will write a check for this. Just give me 2 minutes. You take some time, try this code. Once you're back, I will show you how to write the check for that too. Hi everyone. Okay, so I got this question. Why we use static data for interceptor? Kindly fetch data from API which are freely available to use. Okay, so we can use that. This is one of the way which is something which you are going to use in your projects. Data which is freely available is not going to be relevant for your projects which you're implementing. So in your projects, how will you fake APIs? This is the way. So that's why I'm covering this. It's not something which is not required. This is something which you do day to day in an actual project. Okay. And if you have any choice of a free API, you want to see how it integrates in an Angular project, please share that. If it is a free API, it doesn't require any cost to it. I can try using it in the project. Okay, so now I got this question earlier also, how to remove the interface interceptor if it is in a production mode. So what you can do is in your app module, create an interface interceptor array. So array like this, call it as interceptors. Check the environment variable. So over here, write environments dot production, not environment dot production. So if it is not in the production environment, then in the interceptors, push the HTTP interceptor for the fake API. Okay, and scroll down at the last in the array for providers. You can just write 3 dots interceptors. Okay, so what is this 3 dots? This is a way of writing a spread operator in ES6. So if you want to read about it, you can search over here. Okay, so this is how a spread operator is used to add in values to array which you already have. Okay, so any questions on the setup of interceptors? Is everybody able to run this code? Uh, any questions on it? Okay, so I think no questions on this. We can continue. Please let me know if you have any questions on this. It's a very important thing to know interceptors. These are also going to be used for authentication. If you have any questions on it, let me know. Okay, so great. If you don't have any questions, we can take a small break. And once we're back from the break, on our popular demand, we'll be integrating the JSON placeholder API, which is a free API because nobody has responded back that which API they want to try. So we'll be using the JSON placeholder API to load content in our application and see how this gets implemented. Okay, so if you want to just check out what is JSON placeholder API, you can go to this link and try this out. Once we are back from the break, we'll implement this in our project. So let's take a break for 10 minutes and then we'll jump back. and on this observable we can subscribe to the data. So I can write a handler, and I'm going to receive the users over here. Okay, and let's call this component in the HTML. So over here, after the callouts component, you can write Edreka users table. Let's run this code, and here it is. So it loads up the table component over here. No content right now. Yeah, that's fine. But we can check the inspect panel, and we should get 10 records. Yep, we have the 10 records over here for the 10 users which are coming from the API. And how do we check the API? We can just go to the network tab, and I can see there is this API call which has been sent, and I have the data from those 10 records. Okay, perfect. Now, how do we show them? So we'll create a data grid. So in the template, we are going to write table tr th name. I don't remember what data we will get. So let's check the network. We're going to get name, email, and phone number. So let's use this only, email and phone. Okay, that's the heading, and this will be TD. This will be for each of the record, and the class for this table is going to be table, because that's a CSS class in Bootstrap. And when I run this code, it should print the table over here. Yep, the table is here. Now we just need to do ng for and write let users, a user of users, and get data from it. So I don't get users over here because I need to assign to a public property. So I write users is type of any. I don't have an interface for this right now, but it's going to be array. Okay, so a name conflict happened. So this is already a users which is used. So I'll call it as users list. Users list or user, actually user list. I will write this dot user list is equal to the users which we are getting from the API. Okay, so that's the data over here, which will pass to user list. And in this code, I can just write user list and write this dot name, sorry, user dot name, user dot email, and user dot phone. Okay, and yep, that's it. It will start showing the data according to it. Here it is. Okay, so implementing a public API is also very simple. We already have covered this. It's just the URL has to change to the public API URL. That's it. Okay, so now if you see this data, this is in a form of a unorganized data. So it's not. Okay, so I got this message, how to show only specific name with same. Not sure what's the question. Okay, so you only want to show a specific person's name. Okay, yeah, I was going to that, but let me show you another example. So see, this name data over here, it is coming from the API. Now, this is not organized. So what I want to do is I want to show them in a ascending or descending order. Okay, so Madhumita, I got your question. So can we call a local API in the same way? So I was calling a local API from last 2 days, like today and yesterday. So it's the same way. It's just I got this message that how do we call a public API? Calling a public API or a local API does not matter how wherever they are implemented. It's just a URL which you call, you get the data and run your application based on it. So no difference between a public or a or a local API which your project will pick. Okay, let me first do this demo. So what I want is, I want this data to be shown in a ascending or a descending order. See, I have this data, but it shows in unordered structure over here. So first name should be something which starts from, I think in our case, it should be C, then E, that kind of ascending or descending order for this data. So changing the data in ascending or descending order can be done using the methods which we learned using RxJS. See, this code over here is a observable. So this returns us a observable over here. We can see. Now that means I can write pipe. In the pipe, I can write the map method from RxJS, and then say in the map, I can map the data into a different form. So if I run this code directly right now, nothing will show up. Why? Let's run this code. Nothing will show up over here because the map is not returning any data outside of this code. So it will receive the list, and I have the list of users. And if I return the list, now it will send the data to the subscribe. Yep, it shows the list over here. Okay, so what I can do now is, on this list, I know this is an array. All right, so on this array, I can make some changes into it. So I can actually do the sorting of the data. So there is a sort method on it. Okay, so it's going to give me errors that what kind of data it is. So let's do one thing. Let's write an interface that it's going to be a array of unknown values. Okay, so I don't have the interface for it, and I'm not creating the interface right now. So I'll just say it's a interface of it's a array of unknown values, which is going to be returned. So in my code now, I can write the sort method, like it will not give the error for the sort, and the sort method will take a function. In this function, I will receive A and B. A and B means when you're sorting the data, you will sort based on the current item and the previous item or the next item. So we get A and B, and over here, I'm going to say A dot name minus B dot name. So let's see if it sorts the data based on it. This is going to be any, and this is going to be any also. Okay, so didn't work because sorting on a string doesn't work like this. Let's do one thing. Let's check anything is there which we can use, or we can look for a sorting of string in this case. Okay, let me try this. Okay, so this is a code for running sorting of the teams. Okay, let's see does it works or not. So let's check the code. Okay, yeah. Now if you see, the data has been sorted based on the names. So it starts with C, E, G, K, L, M, N, O, P. Okay, so if you are receiving a data which is unsorted and you want to sort that into a specific order, then you can use the map method. So you can write a map method, pipe.map, pass the data into it, do all your business logic. How do you want to sort the data? And then sort the information from it. Okay, so this can be used for changing the data also. So if I want to make all of these records in uppercase, lowercase, any other content I want to change, like see, the email addresses, they have uppercase letters in it, but we should write the email address in lowercase. So that's not correct. So what I can do is I can say each of the record, once it's been sorted and returned from here, create another map. In this, okay, so now when you have this list sorted, then run a loop on this data. So I can say run a loop on this data by using a for each. For each record, you will get a person, like each person over here. On each person, change their email address equal to person dot to to lowercase. So in this way, you can change the whole data according to your requirements. So I just want to change the email address to in lowercase, and now if I run this code, now once data prints in, it will be in the lowercase. Okay, it's taking some time. Let's see, is there an error? Doesn't look like error. What is the network issue? Network returned. Oh yeah, so I have to return list over here like this. Now you can see the records are now in lowercase over here. So this way, if you want to modify anything, you can use the map method in RxJS and modify this. You can also do filtering. So if I have some content and I only want to show records based on some logic, based on filtering, you can do that too. So let's look into our code. The API returns us this data. Okay, and what do we know about each person over here? So we know their website name, we know their city. So let's use this for filtering it also. Okay, so let's pick few of the cities in the code. So let's say there is this city which is this Mackenzie Heaven. Let's keep a list of these cities in our code. So let's say cities which we want to show the data for. So that will be a string array, and we'll create an array. So this is the city which I want to show the data for, or actually I can just write like this, the city, and for this city only I want to show the records. So what I can do is now I can say pipe whatever data is being, so I want to filter it. So the filtering, I would ideally do the filtering before I will ideally do the filtering before I'm passing it to the other pipes in my code. So I will not pass the data to map. I will first filter it, then pass it to the map. Okay. So over here, I will say filter. Okay, I got a question. What is the difference between pipes in Angular and RxJS pipes? So Angular pipes are the pipes which you are having in Angular. They have all the features, but they are not very they actually work on the template. So in some cases, you don't want to work on the template. You want to modify data in your data at the model level only. So we use pipes in those cases. If you want to modify data at the template level only, then you use the pipe in Angular. But if you want to modify the data at the model level, then you use the pipe. So we have to find the mix of it, what is better for your implementation. For me, I prefer to control the data at the model level. So I don't pass in additional data to the template, because template calculations are more expensive than calculating them in your pipes in RxJS or in these observables. Okay, so over here, I'm going to write RxJS operators, and I want to get the filter operator. Okay, so now I will say filter. What is the problem? Yeah, okay, I have to pass in a function to it. That will fix. Okay, and how do I want to filter as? I will receive each person over here. One second, yeah. What is this happening? Okay, so I want to look for people who have their city as this one which we have hard coded. So I can write person dot address based on what we have in the data. So we know that there is a person dot address dot city is equal to this city string which we have. If it is matching this, then it's the right record which I want to show. So now if I run this code, it should filter out the results for me. Okay, so no results shown. Why no results are shown over here? Oh yeah, yeah, my bad. Actually, we have to use another map over here. Filter, what filter does is it checks like is the complete data matching with that same thing. But yeah, that won't work on a list. So we have to say filter like this. We have to see the list, and we'll write the return list dot filter from JavaScript and filter it over here. Each person, and over here I want to say return person dot address dot city equal to this dot city which we have. So yeah, only one person's details are shown. So if you want to filter out based on name, city, or any other condition in it also, like if a person is having a phone number or phone number matches with this specific value, you can write conditions on it in the filter and control that. So this way you can filter out your data, uh, write checks on it, and return the data. So by using these at your model level, they are much more powerful. And ideally, what you should do is don't even write these in your component. Just write them directly in your service itself. So over here, so you can say you can write all of them directly in your service, the whole pipe in your service, and make changes into your code according to it. Like you can say if you have a check for city, then pass in the city also into it as a type of string. If you have if you want to you can write the city over here, and from your code you can say, yeah, this is the city, I want to look for the data in it, and it will filter out the results and provide you the data according to that only. Okay, so get the users based on a city, the data will be received for all the users, the map method will filter it out and return you the data according to it. You can also pass in other values like order. Is it going to be ascending or descending order? You can do that also. So you can pass in, you can write a custom logic for looking for ascending order or descending order road records in this case. So what you can do is you can say, if it is ascending, if order equal to ASC, run this code. Okay. Otherwise, run the same code, but we will reverse it. So in this case, we'll say this like this. Okay. So ascending or descending logic can be implemented like this. Now from your code, when you're calling this, you can say, okay, so I want the data. By default, it's going to receive the data in ascending order, but you can write, I want to get the data in descending order, and I want to get all the data for all the cities. So you can write undefined. There is no defined value for it. Or you can pass in an empty string also. So you can say, I don't have a value. And in your service, you can check over here. If a city is passed in, if city is passed in, then only run this code. Otherwise, return the whole list ahead like this, the same list. So you can control more advanced logics in it. So you can say, if city is passed in, good, filter on the city. If no city is passed in, it's empty string. Actually, we can write city dot length greater than 0, so that checks the string, that what is the size of the string. If the size of the string is more than 0, then filter on the string. Otherwise, return the list ahead. Then over here, you can check like ascending or descending order, which you want, and return the data according to that. So let's run this. And now I've configured it to get me all the records for different cities, but without like in the descending order. So you can see it starts with P and ends with C. If I go to the code and change this in the code over here to ASC, it will return the same data, but in ascending order. So this way you can update, or you can modify your model based on different values. You can pass into them and control them. How if else is using here to sort the name according to ascending or descending? Could you please explain? Okay. How should I filter this array for specific name or email? So it's the same thing for a city. So you can say instead of a city, you can write a map for the email and pass in the email address to it and look for the email address. Okay, so Somnath, when you are using the sort method, you have to pass in a compare method into it. So that will compare two values, and based on that, it will return you the result. Okay. So your question, the next question which you have is, how is the sort method working? Okay, so the question is how if else is using here to sort the name according to ascending or descending order. Could you please explain? So if the condition is ascending, if the ascending value has been passed as an order, okay, so this part of the code will only run because it's in a condition. So it will check that, okay, it is greater than the name, b name, or less than the b name, and if it is not matching, just return 0. Okay, so only this part will run. When you return something, when you return anything from the function, the further code after it will not execute. So if the code comes into this block and any of this condition is true, like because there are two conditions which can be true and there is always a return at the last. Okay, so this code, when it enters this block, it will not move outside of this block then. So once it's entered into this block, it will not go outside. So there is only three possibilities: -1, 1, and 0 that will be returned in the ascending block. Okay, now that will handle my ascending code. Now how is descending working is, the descending code will only execute if this block is not running. So that's the else part of it. So in JavaScript, we don't need to write a else case if we are just returning values. So I can return the first value from the if condition and then return anything which will be handled in the else part. So the else part of this code is this this block over here. Okay, this is an else condition for the descending part. Now, in this also, if you have any of these conditions true, it will return the value and exit from here. So that's how it's been handled. So I can refactor this. I can just say there is an else block into it, and this is your else block. But why do I don't even need to write this else block, because I can just directly write the code outside of the condition, because it's returning the value. So after you return the value, the further code of it will not execute. So that's the concept which I'm using. I was using to move into the else block. But if that's not clear, you can write the else block like this. Okay, so I've got this question. It will can't we use the sort method? It will check accordingly to the length or the lexicographically in if else condition. No, it will not work like that, because it's not one single value. It's a object, and on that object you have to define for what you want to filter the results. I have to say I want to filter the results based on a name, and then I have to compare this. So in JavaScript, the string comparison does not work directly. So you have to write the conditions like this. If you have a number, then you can just write minus a minus b or b minus a. But in strings, it doesn't work. Okay. Any other questions? Is it clear now? This is a use case of how your RxJS methods can be used. This is a kind of a real scenario where you will be using the RxJS methods. Okay, so any scenario you can think of, like I got this message for a name and email address. In a case of email address or name, you can just say I want to filter based on instead of name, you can say I want to filter based on city. Like I was doing it for city over here. You can say I want to filter it based on a name or email address, whatever you like. Okay, any scenarios if you want to discuss, let me know. There can be another use case that you want to get, like this is returning 10 records. If you want to get only 5 records from it, you can again create a map method and say, I want to get how many records from it. So you can say max. I have to get max. I will write 10 over here. That's the default value. And in this one, I can write list dot splice, and from 0 to the max value which I want to splice to. Okay, so it will return specific number of records what I have passed in. So I'm passing 10 over here as a max, but if I go to my component and say no, I don't want 10 records, I just want to get 5 records from it, it will return me only 5 records. You can see instead of 10 it shows up 5 records to me. You can just say no, not even 5, I just want 2, and it shows 2 records to you. Okay, so this way you can also control how many records, what is the limit you want to get. So this is only on your front end code. It's not sending these limits or these sorting orders to your backend. So this is only good to implement if your data is small. If you have like thousands of records coming from the API, do not do the filtering on the front end, because this filtering concept is very expensive on thousands of records. Like I have seen some examples where people are loading like 10,000 records from the database, and then they're doing a filtering on it. That 10,000 records can be up to like 200 MB or 100 MB of data, which you're loading in your application and doing filtering on it. So your JavaScript code may crash because what kind of browser you're using for it, what kind of system you're using for running that code, it may crash your browser. So it's not a good idea for huge amount of data. For few restricted, like few records, like I would say 500 records, 200 records, it's good. You can do it on the client side, but very huge amount of data should not be filtered on your client side, on your server side, sorry, on your client side code. It should be done on your server side by sending this filters to your API and filter it. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions on it? Okay, so Somnath is saying, can you unmute me? Yep. Hi Somnath, I've sent you the presenter request. Yep.
Hello,
Yep.
am I audible now?
Yes.
Uh, just a minute. Okay, I stop sharing. Okay, you please share your screen. Uh, Hello.
Yeah, you can say what you're saying.
Mm. No, no, no. I will not share. I just want to
Yeah,
ask you
yeah. What's
something.
your, yeah? Okay.
Can you
What's your
please?
question?
Mhm. My question is that actually I am asking that in that sort method, the suppose if I want to arrange any email ID or any name according to the ascending order, so will they check string comparison or the length comparison? Means they will sort the method according to the length, or they will compare the string here, because you have wrote that a dot name is less than a b dot name. So how this is working?
So this is comparing the actual value, not the length.
Actual value.
Yeah. If you
Okay.
see the records, let me show you. So if you see the 10 records,
Mhm.
here's the demo. Sorry, here it is. If you see the 10 records, they are sorted
Mhm.
based on the actual value, not on the length of the value. See,
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Any other question, anyone? Okay, so I will give you this code, try this out, and then we'll continue. Okay, so the examples for covering authentication, the next thing which is going to be done in the next session is covering authentication and setting our routes. So I got this message in the feedback that we haven't done JW tokens or authentication part in it. So if you have these kind of questions, just go through the content we have. So everything is planned. It just we have to take step-by-step things. So in the next session, you're going to go through routing, handling forms, and the last thing which we're going to learn is the authentication part. So how do we authenticate different pages for specific users? Like if I'm admin user, am I allowed to visit a page? If I'm not, so how will I show the error to the user? All of these things are going to be covered. It's just going to take some time. I don't want to rush into like hundreds of topics in one day. So just go through the topics in the LMS. If you have question on what topics are going to be covered next or in the same session. Right. So we have done the complete setup or covered the examples of using a public API also. There is no difference in using a public API or a API using JSON server in our project. It's just the URL has to be updated to the public API URL. We have seen how RxJS observables can be used for creating a mock API. Okay, and then we have also seen how we can use the RxJS observables, or sorry, RxJS methods for filtering or converting a data into a different form by using the map methods. Okay, so I got a question for how many records or size services can apply any methods like map or filters? See, technically there is no limit which should be implemented on it. Like there is, it just uh, the system can handle a million records also, but using that much of usage on your uh, customer system. See, as a developer, you are having a best machine with you. You may be using the latest Mac machine or a Windows latest laptop. But think about a user. A user is in a metro. They are going in a metro line or in a train or in a car, and they are using a website on a 4G or a 3G connection. Or if they are lucky, they may be on a Wi-Fi connection. In those cases, if you are loading huge amount of data directly uh, on their phone, it can be a very big problem for them. Like think of you are checking your email, but just to load the last email, you're loading 500 MB of data, which is having all your 30,000 emails in your account. So that will be not a good practice. So what we should do is we should ideally find it based on our project, that if I'm sending a request to the server, I should not request more than 500 kilobytes, because 500 kilobytes is quite enough amount of data for showing some results on the screen. If you have more than 500 kilobytes, what you can do is you can break the data into two different requests. So you can ask your backend team that if I'm sending you a request, first send me the first 100 records. Then if I send a request, I will tell you which set of records I want. So you can implement a pagination kind of a logic. And that is how even our big applications also use, like Facebook or Twitter. When you are going through your Twitter wall, you will see only first 20 tweets will be shown up. Then when you scroll down to the last, it sends a new request and then loads the next 20 tweets for you. Facebook does the same. Here Gmail also uses the same thing. So because they know that the customers are going to use it in different environments, and people who are using your application, they may be using a very old system also. So try to load limited data, not a huge amount of data. Okay, next question, can we use multiple interceptors in a project? Yes, and later on, once we start with authentication, we are going to use a interceptor for authenticating a user also. So we are going to set up that later on. So for in your project, you can have multiple interceptors. That's fine. But the only thing is when you have multiple interceptors, go to your app module, like the way we handled over here. Which type of interceptor is it? Is it going to be for uh, faking the APIs? Then if it is faking the APIs, then add it into the non-production dependency. If it is an interceptor for authentication, you have to add that into the interceptor array so that it loads up on your production systems also. Okay, so this section over here, this is for all prod and non-prod, and this will be only for non-prod use cases. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, so do one thing, please go through the assignment, and there are two assignments over here. No, sorry, let me check. I think there will be only one assignment. Yeah, there is only one assignment which you have to implement. So there is a REST API. This is a API which is going to provide you the data. Okay, so this API returns you a list of records. Now this API has a check in it. So if you are sending like more than 2 or 3 requests in a few seconds, it will fail the data. So see, if I have sent like multiple requests to it, it returns me 429 too many requests. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to use this to show the data, and if there is a error like it returns you 429, which is too many requests, it will take you to the error scenario of your subscribe. And in that case, you have to show some error that unable to load data for the user or the employees. So you can handle that. Okay, how we can handle the errors, I've already showed you in the other example, but I will show it again. In the users table, like when I'm subscribing, the first function which I'm passing is for success. The second one is going to be for error. Okay, so you can write this is going to return error, and if there is an error, then what to do for the error scenario. Okay, okay, so you can handle the error like this in your code. Any questions? Anything you want to discuss? We have around 6-7 minutes left. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will commit this code into GitHub. And I will send you the link for this also. So please keep this handy with you. And you can check this code on GitHub also. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I will wait another for 5 minutes, then I will end the webinar. So we are kind of complete the content. You can complete the assignment. It's just to get the data using the HTTP client, create the data binding using ng-for, and show the list of users or the employees on the screen. So it will populate the list of employees like this. Okay, got a question. Can we use small triangle in CSS class or arrow marks? Sorry, I didn't get your question. Which one? What are you saying in this? Lakshmi, what is your question? Can we use small triangle using CSS style or arrow marks? Oh yeah, you can add you can add those in your CSS, or you can use an image because CSS only has these icons or in li elements. So better would be using images, a small image you can get from internet and use that over there. Or you can use any emojis, search for emojis, and you can just look for arrow or something like this. Like some kind of arrow icon and use that. Okay, so I personally use these emoji tags for my kids. Okay, so any other questions? So next session is going to be interesting because we are going to create a full end-to-end application, because till now we have created only one page, and on only one page we are showing the results or everything on it. But actual application will have like multiple pages where you want to show different results or different content. So we are going to use the Angular router to define navigation between different pages and take the user across multiple pages, and also create a form where you can send data to your API, store that on the server side, and return that back when it is required. So it's like if you want to post information, update information, we can do that using forms. So we're going to learn Angular routes, handling forms, and validating forms in the next two sessions in the next week. Right, I think no questions. We can wrap up the session a little early. So we have saved our 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'm here. If you don't, you can leave the webinar for today. Thank you everyone for joining in, and have a nice week ahead. And let's meet in the next weekend. So Sabaj, what's the question? What is a resolver? Where have you seen this? Are you there, Sabaj? You have to let me know like where have you used this. If you can share me the code or something, because I am not sure there is something term as a resolver in Angular. Okay, so I think what you're saying is regarding the Angular routing resolvers. Uh, that is something which we'll do in the next session, not right now. So once we do the routing part, then we can see. So we'll cover that in the next session, not right now. Okay, so cool guys, thank you for joining in. Let's meet in the next session, the next weekend. Have a nice day ahead, and also good night.